Now at this point I should mention that before I put those pads on, I cleaned this rotor. I just took a paper towel and my aerosol carburetor cleaner and sprayed a wet spot on the paper towel and wiped, because you're handling this stuff, you're going to get a little grease on there. There's just no two ways about it. But keep that grease down to a minimum. Okay. Just spray some carburetor cleaner on there. And you can just go around and spin that rotor. Wipe that stuff off. Do both sides. Okay. And then now we've got our pad on the other side there. And this pad here goes on this side. You got to get it under those little clips there. Okay, and then push her up tight to your rotor. And those should be nice and tight to your rotor. Okay. Now, the caliper. Now this caliper has got a couple of pins on here. They're like a little piece of pipe in these rubber grommets. They have to be pushed back out of the way in order to get that caliper back on. So without twisting the hose, taking it or anything, the same way that we took it off, we'll set her back in here. Okay. And our pads are tight enough together. Okay. And then we'll have to reach up here with our other hand, pull those pins back all the way so that that'll come on. And then these little pins, these little spring clips right here, pull them back, and they should fit in those little holes. Okay. And that's it. Alright. Now our 2 bolts that we took out, right? They go into the center of those little pins. You might have to wiggle that caliper around a little bit to find the hole that the threads need to start into. Okay. And then our ratchet. And we'll tighten everything down. And I did not look up the specs for torque. I've done so many of them, I do it by hand. But I guess I could look it up and post it as an annotation or something. They don't have to be super tight. They come off pretty easy, so I just bumped them with my hand to get them off, and I'm just going to bump them with my hand to get them back on. That's good. Okay. Now I'll spin our rotor here a few times. So now at this point we've got our wheel bearings are all packed, full of grease, back on the spindle, everything's cleaned up. We've got a new set of shoes, or pads rather, okay, and our caliper's back in place and it's all bolted down. Alright. The pads I took out looked like they were still in pretty good shape. I didn't know how bad they were, so I elected, if I'm going to go this far, to go ahead and change them. And worst comes to worst, I can put them back on if something happens to these. But my recommendation is always get pads that have lifetime warranty. That's my motto. All right, now we take our pliers here and we've snugged that up. Okay, turn this a few times, turn that rotor, make sure nothing's hanging up, binding, wobbling. See, okay, and I'm going to back this off 1/8 of a turn, which is one flat spot in the nut. Gob of grease on my finger. And I'm going to put it on here. Like so. Fill the back of that retainer ring with grease. I know you can't see a lot of this because I'm doing it one-handed. Sorry folks, but this I can do. What I got, this is a backyard mechanic job. Alright, and this will keep that retainer from wobbling all over the place in there. Okay. So now we should be done with our wheel bearing grease. We can put that away. Put the lid back on it. Okay. Now, take one of my new cotter keys here. This is 1.5 inch. What size is this? 1/8 by 1 3/4 cotter pin. Okay. From good old Napa Auto Parts. There's a little hole in the top of this, in the top of the spindle. Okay, that goes all the way down through the spindle. That cotter key goes down through there, goes through the teeth of that retainer cap, and that retainer cap and that cotter pin keeps that nut from vibrating loose. Okay, so it can't get too tight, it can't get too loose. That nut's staying in that spot where we set it. All right. Now what I'm going to do is bend the legs up. Okay. And just get the top over so the cap will go on. Bend that other leg up on our cotter key. All right. And put our dust cap on. And again, like putting our dust seal in on the back side. It's tin, just tap it in. You'll hear it when you go around. It's nice and solid. Okay. Spin everything. Now you'll hear a little bit of a rubbing sound there. That's the brake shoes are going to be rubbing a little bit. Okay, and that's normal. So the other thing is, now we'll just take our tire, put our tire back on, and it's job complete. That's packing the wheel bearings. And I'll have to look up the torque spec on the lug nuts. But I imagine they're 110 pounds, something like that. Or you could just drive over to the tire shop and have the guy run over there with his torque wrench. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to torque those for you. I'm not going to torque them because I need to take this over and get the tires rotated anyway for their 5,000 mile rotation. I'll drive it over to the tire shop and they'll rotate the tires and torque them down for me. But that's how you do packing the wheel bearings on a 1994 Ford F150 pickup, two-wheel drive. Now this is not four-wheel drive, it's two-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive is a little different. Okay, but there it is.